Good to go. It is Thursday. We have arrived upon Thursday.
Somehow.
Somehow.
Was there something that was supposed to happen on Thursday? I think something was supposed to happen. I don't know what it was. Oh. Oh, you thought that if you were a non-supporting listener that you were gonna hear us talk with Mr. Deist, weren't you? On Thursday. Well, guess what? Strike. Nope. Not today.
Did we actually publicly say we were going to release it today?
I think we may have said that.
Oh, I thought we said it off the air. Okay, then if we said it, then I'll release it.
No, fuck those broke bastards. You got to deal with us.
Fair.
You got to deal with us, and then watch me wear the same shirt and talk to Jeff Deist on Monday. That's what you do. Our supporting listeners got to enjoy it. I don't know if we said it publicly or not either. I totally forget everything. But
yeah, everything just all blends itself together for me. So yeah, we for those who don't know, who are living under a rock or something, we talked to Mr. Jeff Deist on Tuesday, and it was the man absolutely brought a flamethrower. He went about. I've heard him, get no nonsense before, but it was. That was one of the most. This term's getting overused, but in this case, it's particularly appropriate. One of the most based, basically monologues that I've ever heard.
Yeah, and I was because I caught myself several times just kind of like watching the show. I was just like watching the Jeff Deist show, and I was like, "Here's a guy.
Right.
There's a guy that looks like me," and then I had to sort of snap back into it.
Keep seeing a guy who looks like you on the screen.
I know, which is more and more on the internet these days. It's getting weird, but I as I was watching it, I was kind of thinking that I don't think I've seen him that sort of out there. And then, but I've heard a couple other people say that too now at this point who have seen it. So interested to when the pores get to see it, what their reaction will be.
The pores. Yeah, it was. I had the same thing. I'm sitting there. It's like, and I haven't, to be completely honest, I basically haven't really interviewed anybody before. I've had conversations with people, and so I naturally feel like I'm having a conversation. But the format of interviewing is different. But I felt like, that we're going to respect his time and respect his, his what he's accomplished and his status, and so I wanted to be like actually not be here to soapbox. I'm here to hear what you have to say, and so it felt very like I just wanted to just sit back and just listen, But I had to keep like plugging back into me, like, okay, so we need to have another question here. We need to take this somewhere else. There was some questions I wanted to ask him that I think that if we'd have asked him off air, he would have answered, but there was no way he was going to answer those questions on air.
Yeah. Next time, maybe.
Yeah.
I feel like there'll be next time.
Someone said something about needing to him. I guess he doesn't really like doing podcasts. He doesn't really like doing interviews. And that's why he doesn't do them super often.
Yeah.
But someone said that like he needs to, like they need to get him on like Tim Pool or one of those platforms because he's so concise and to the point. He doesn't waste any words. He's very to the point, but he also manages to be very like diplomatic. He doesn't come on too strong.
Yeah, it's an amazing little combination he's got going for him. I would like to see him on Tim Pool, just annoyed that it's like 9 hours long and like it's like, why are you wearing that dumb hat? And then
speaking of,
okay,
were you going to go somewhere?
Oh, with a dumb hat thing? No,
Yeah.
well, I was just imagining. No, I don't know, because I just started in my head. Do we have a hat sponsor or something?
No,
No. Oh, yeah. I was just thinking in
not
my
yet.
head of who's that? Who's the like libertarian guy who's on like Tim Pool? Doesn't he have like a real...
Luke Rudkowski.
Oh, is that who that is?
Is that who you're talking about? The
Oh,
We Are
maybe.
Change guy?
Oh yeah, I don't know. See, I see Twitter names, and I know that there's like a real libertarian type guy on Tim Pool's show, but it would be really funny to sort of maybe watch him sort of jump in and just get swatted around by Tyson.
Yeah, he's Luke is he does a lot of really good work. I mean, the guy is completely dedicated to what he does. I think were we to sit down and have a political conversation and just discuss like philosophy, I think that he would probably land closer to like a Reason or Cato kind of person, somewhere in there. I think he's a little more I wouldn't want to call it regime libertarian, but it's because he's very much he's I guess he's just kind of a little lefty in his flavor, and so so he's definitely the type who Deist would probably have might have a bone to pick with on a few things, but of course he's the consummate gentleman. So so yeah, with speaking of Tim Pool, I learned something recently that I want to do some more study into, some more research. I want to understand this subject a little better, and I'm going to figure out how to talk about it on here without eliminating our YouTube channel. So there's this particular substance that starts with an I that has been turned into a political football. And the thing that substance does is it is an anti-parasitic. And apparently
for a particular animal, or
yeah, right, yes. There's particular animals are always brought into question when this substance is being discussed. So the substance or it's an anti-parasitic, and there's one of the main parasites that apparently that exists in a lot of people is something called toxoplasmosis. It's the thing that why pregnant ladies aren't supposed to empty litter boxes or be around cats, because they often carry toxoplasmosis. And apparently there's a lot of research indicating that toxoplasmosis somehow gets control of the risk reward centers of your brain. So with for example, with rats who have toxoplasmosis, there's like after a certain period after which they got infected, there's a point where like a switch flips, and suddenly if you take that rat and you put it down into a cage and you put like something with cat urine on the opposite side of the cage, the rats will just walk up to it. Like normally they would try to like get out of the cage. They wouldn't want to be anywhere near the cat urine. But if they're infected with toxoplasmosis, they like walk right up and just like they have it compromises their risk assessment.
You hang out with like a lot of any Brazilians?
No.
Yeah.
Is there a lot of toxoplasmosis in Brazil?
This is for the fans, but go Google that the T word in Brazil, and then I don't know. There's a trip you can go on with that one. So we won't get into it here. It's kind of pot talky, but yeah. I just wonder if anyone. Yeah, but yeah, keep going. It's
interesting.
That's a thing that.
So,
but I mean, but the fucking thing is, like, I don't know if it's true or not, but just having been like around like a shit ton of Brazilian dudes and like less women, but some of them, it really connects a lot of dots with like the risk reward type behavior.
I guess it makes carriers of the parasite more aggressive. It kind of makes them more aggressive and dumber. And just to some degree, it gives the indicators of excess testosterone. But I think it has something to do with dopamine. It changes something related to dopamine in the brain. And so there's theories. What's that?
That's where the ladies come into play.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's theories that there's actually, I mean, whether it's toxoplasmosis or any other sort of parasite like that, there's like, what would be the political implications of a whole bunch of people all being infected by some kind of parasite that compromises their decision-making capacity? And then what sort of potential is there in deliberately infecting people with stuff, or taking advantage of people being infected with stuff? So that's part of the kind of the deeper theory, is that this particular medication going around is an anti-parasite. And so if hypothetically toxoplasmosis or something like it was a existed prevalently throughout a lot of people, and all of a sudden all of those people started taking an antiparasitic, then you might see a mass change in human behavior. So one thing that someone had pointed out, I guess, is basically ever since Tim had COVID, yeah, I shouldn't have said the word. Ever since Tim got sick,
well, it's too late now. It's live.
Yeah, that's true. Ever since he got sick and had I'm trying to build muscle memory here. Ever since he got sick and had and took that particular medication, he's changed. Like he's become a lot more aggressive, really. Like that's and a lot more. You've seen a lot more clips going around of him like really berating people or really ranting about stuff that weren't kind of in the same way as before. There's an extra edge to him. So I'd be very interested to see if there's any validity to that.
So
but then
wait,
also,
but what? How? But okay, so the medicine is supposed. I thought the medicine isn't going to get rid of the parasite that makes you aggressive.
The medicine is anti-parasitic. So if people take the medicine, wait. Yeah, okay, wait. I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
So if people,
I wasn't going to necessarily bring it up, but I mean, I took some medicine that might be the medicine you're talking about.
That's right.
I'm kind of a pussy now. I don't know. I'm yeah. I don't know.
Made you soft.
Maybe a little bit of its age, and I don't know, but yeah, I don't like. There's
yeah. I see what you're saying now. I took a left turn when I should have taken a right turn somewhere in there. Well, either way, so whether that is a particular example of it or not, that was what first got my attention about the toxoplasmosis thing. And so then, and maybe part of what I misunderstood was maybe it's not, doesn't make him aggressive. Maybe it changes something else about him. I don't know. Whatever it is, there's evidence of things like parasites or, viruses or something like that affect the personality of the people that have them, where it's like a trait of that substance or that that molecule or whatever it is itself. And we're starting to see this I don't know, like a blending or a meeting of the material and the spiritual, like over and over and over again. And what I suspect now, I can't imagine this wouldn't happen. I can't imagine that this wouldn't be something that people would take advantage of. That if there's evidence, if these sorts of studies start coming out talking about how, whether it's a parasite or a virus or some bacteria or something that causes a spiritual change in you, where like when you are infected or have been infected or have been not infected or something, if there's some category that sets you apart from the rest, and there can be a scientific link made between you having that status and you being inclined to think or act a certain way, like that's like the thing where it's like this whole group of people all need to be set aside in their own camp, or they need to be cut off from the rest of the society. That what I'm seeing is more and more evidence building toward that becoming a reality. So yeah, it was an interesting little data point. I don't remember how we got into that, or how that. Oh, you mentioned Tim Pool. I think that's what made me think of it.
Yeah, there's a I like the combo now. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah. See, this bullshit did really start all after the medicine. So, like, I don't know. This is like sort of maybe could be my natural state. I don't know. I did spend a shit ton of time around Brazilians, so if it's fucking contagious, I don't know. Maybe I got a little bit of it. Then after the medicine, here we are. This would make more sense if you knew me as a sweet boy.
Amy said that your personality definitely seemed to change after you got sick. She said for the better, for sure. You got your shit together in an inspirational way.
Oh,
and I would second that. Yeah, there was a stretch of time there where
I was
wondered
about killing myself 3 minutes before I hopped on this fucking restream. So don't let it fool you.
But you're doing it happily now. That's the difference.
It's a bit. I'm an entertainer. None of this is real.
You're basically Alex Jones.
Yep, that's right. That's right. That poor guy. Man, does anyone know him personally? In the chat. Someone in the chat has to know Alex Jones. I put it all into the chat. Anything that
I know Michael Malice, and Michael Malice knows Alex Jones, so I can get one degree away from him.
Yeah, I mean, how is he like redlining like all the time? There's no way, right? It's impossible.
I can't. Is his personality, is that actually him, or is it an act that he's, is it like a suit he's climbing into?
Yeah, and I mean, it's got to be amplified or whatever, but it's just like, man, the hypertension must be real.
I remember I think it was the last time that he was on Rogan, he was talking about how he's kind of just now accepted that he's going to work himself to death, and he's just really tired, but he feels an obligation. He seemed completely sincere that he feels an obligation to keep doing the work and keep trying to wake people up, and it just, he recognizes that he's fully sacrificing his own body for it, and he's ready to be done and be able to kind of move into the background. And I felt bad for the guy. He obviously there's a performance art to what he's doing, but there definitely seems to be, I don't know, like a good spirit behind it, or a desire to genuinely do good.
Maybe Tim also kind of has seen that, like, certain things, because like people start behaving to these, like, incentives before they even consciously like recognize it. So maybe he starts to see that, like, angry Tim, just like angry Mark got himself on fucking part of the problem.
Yeah,
I don't know if he's been there before, but
that was
I mean, the episode that I heard, it wasn't, Mark is a really sweet and sincere guy.
When Mark gets a little edge to his voice. Yeah.
When Mark comes out with the third album where he's wearing a little bit of eyeliner and has like the dark trench coat on, that's the one that got on POTP. So that was toxoplasmosis Mark. So, and even Mark, fucking, how are we talking about Mark Claire right now?
I was just gonna say,
but he's leaning into it. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
it's that kind of thing where, it's not happen with Mark, but that whatever that phenomenon, I never remember the word is, where someone basically, it's like you're destined to become a caricature of yourself. It's just you can't help it. I mean, angry Mark, he could really lean into doing like a heel turn. It's like you thought this shit was sweet.
Yeah, he could just start. He always has everything is very light around him, like very white and
right.
Is very like noble and regal and everything. He could start like casting himself with like lots of dark colors and wearing, like you said, dark eyeliner, and just make everything a lot darker. Like have like a background like mine with less light and less color, just kind of muted and subdued, and he could be angry Mark.
It's a whole thing now where it's just like, oh man, well, everybody likes Mark Claire. He's like the Labrador Retriever of the Liberty world. Like, you even disagree with him, you can't help but like him. It's like, well, man, he just sent me a Photoshop picture of my kids that's pretty unflattering. So I don't know. Like, oh, Mark, man, we need to have evil Mark Claire on the show.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah,
I I think we could probably make that happen somehow.
Yeah, I know. We were able to make Jeff Deist and Charlemagne happen.
You made those two happen.
Well,
that wasn't any me.
That's very true. But just the idea that Mark Claire finished at like 2% on that poll was like, these dickheads couldn't talk to fucking, a guy with an avatar. I can't think of anything to say about Jeff Deist. I'm not ready to even jokingly fuck around with Jeff Deist. So, I mean,
just so people know, some people apparently didn't pick up on what Steven was doing in the last episode, or the interview with Charlemagne. Yeah. He was so Charlemagne always, if you ever watch videos that he's in, there you go. If you ever watched any videos that Charlemagne's in, he always has that. He doesn't turn his camera on. He's got good OPSEC. He keeps his true identity hidden. And so he has just his little avatar sitting there. And then when he talks, it bulges out. Gets like it's getting closer to you, kind of. So that's what Steven was doing. And this was something that, I mean, the first time we talked about having Charlemagne on the show, like
about a year,
January, February, like really like a long time ago, Steven had said that like we should do that. We should sit there and we should do that the whole time. So that was a joke that was almost a year in the setup. Yeah. And we had I had the opportunity. I explained it just like I did here. I explained it to Charlemagne, and he thought it was fucking hilarious.
Yeah, it was behind the scenes. I had thought that Matt kind of sneaky went live because I saw some comments coming through, but it was just people who were in the stream before we went live. And to be fair, because I was kind of nervous that this guy really doesn't find me as funny as I find myself or anywhere close. But he like cackled laughing when like Matt told him what it was.
Yeah,
like it was pretty good. So, what a good sport Charlemagne is.
Yeah, good old Chuck.
Good old Chuck.
Okay, well, real quick, let's thank our sponsor for the day. So I actually have both of our Paloma Verde goodies here. And speaking of, I'm going to eat a Paloma Verde gummy. This is a strawberry lemonade CBD gummy. It's delicious. Look at it, Steven. Just look at it.
I'm looking at it.
Yeah, are you drooling yet?
I am.
It's so good.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. All I've got is this punk-ass green apple. I'm just kidding. It smells good.
Literally the only downside to it is that it's so good that you just want to eat them all right away. Yeah. But you can't just eat them all right away because you need to make them last. That's the only downside. It's a phenomenal product. It's very good. It's ever since I started taking it, I've been sleeping better. It's a product made from a natural plant. It's non-psychoactive because it's CBD. Doesn't have any THC in it. So you can even, I don't think there's a problem with me saying this. We give it to our son. So I'll just say that we give it to our son. We don't give him the gummies, but we give him the little tincture drops. And so it's great for especially if you have like issues with your nervous system or your nerves are buzzing or you've got some kind of chronic pain or something like that. CBD is good. It will kind of it relaxes your anxiety a little bit. It kind of makes the voices of kind of sink into the background, and you're able to kind of like relax and let your shoulders down a little bit. So it's very healthy, very natural. And Carlos and Vanessa are good friends of the show. They've got a good little family business going there. We love supporting them, and we love that you guys support them on our behalf. So if you'd like to get yourself some quality CBD products, just go to palomaverdecbd.com. Use promo code KING. You get 25% off any order over $75. And yeah, they're the supporter of this stream. They were the first advertiser we ever got. And we'll keep advertising for them as long as they'll take us.
That's right. And hopefully, this is no bullshit here. I know that when we started, just like, okay, these two like long-haired hippies talking to each other, but I think you see now after we got somebody like Charlemagne on, and then that Jeff Deist guy as well. We're kind of the real deal here. So there's another podcast out there that is a number one, is sort of the number one seller for Carlos at PalomaVerdeCBD.com, promo code KING. and I'm not a huge fan of that being number 2. So really, I was kind of CBD hesitant, we would say, and after trying it, I'm a fan. So even if you're like, even if you think it's fake,
Are you a CBD denier?
Yeah, if you're a CBD, yeah, go try something. Why don't you? Go try something. If you got a spastic dog, go chill that little motherfucker out. Go over to plumaverdacbd.com, use promo code King on the chill your dog out pills or serums or whatever.
That just needs to be the ad. Just that sentence.
I don't need to use my Thunder shirt as much, so it's good.
When I posted in our supporting listeners group just before this that we were going live, I asked if anybody had any questions or any particular thing that was on their mind, and Kyle Rittenhouse was the thing that people were bringing up. And I haven't, to be completely honest, I haven't totally followed the trial. I just kind of see when I get on Twitter periodically and just sort of scroll through it and see people saying stuff about it. I'm like, okay, that, just sort of keeping tabs on it. I did fire a tweet off yesterday. Made sure that I got my position on the record. This thing that I'm not paying any attention to, I'm going to make sure that I have my position on the record. So if I predict it correctly, then I can make myself look good.
I haven't been paying attention to this, but it does not preclude me from having very strong opinions on the matter.
Exactly. This is the nature of modern politics on Twitter. So my prediction with it is that he's going to be that there's going to be a mistrial declared, but it's going to be a mistrial without prejudice, meaning that it's going to be so if there was a mistrial declared with prejudice, it would mean that they can't retry him for the same thing again. And my guess is that there's going to be a mistrial declared, but it's going to be without prejudice. And the consequence of that is it's going to sustain the pain for everyone. It's going to drag it out. And it maximizes the punishment to him. It maximizes the pain to the people who are making things hard on the regime. But it also pushes this out into an election year. Next year is an election year. So if the mistrial is declared here, all the people like the prosecutors and stuff get to then go on a media tour and proclaiming to the world and we get to get a book deal or whatever else. And this whole thing is allowed to simmer. And I think, number one, to keep an eye out for the Ahmaud Arbery case. And if they wrap this Rittenhouse one up, then I think the national focus is going to turn to that one. And especially if there's a mistrial declared, then there's going to be all kinds of hullabaloo about this is like, this is unjust, that he needs to be in prison. Look at this, system of white supremacy, yada, yada, yada. And they can whip up even more fervor around it. And it's going to be good for ratings. And it's just going to raise the stakes for everyone. That's essentially what I'm anticipating. So
when in doubt, if you can bet on something that's going to extend the pain for everybody, just bet on that option.
Right.
It's like cheating. Like anything 2020, 21-ish, 2-ish, eternity-ish, heretofore. Yeah, just bet on that. Bet on that. You don't need to know details.
Bet on the people being involved being more or less incompetent. So they just expect them to kind of bumble their way through everything. And ultimately, whatever they do to wind up being a facilitator for greater evil. That's kind of the mode of the system. The system is set up where like each individual person doesn't really fully understand everything that's going on. They just have their own limited perspective, and they're acting according to that limited perspective. So for example, the judge doesn't have the full understanding of the whole nature. Like someone who listens to this show, someone who follows around in our circles, I would wager that from a 50,000 foot view, we have a more red-pilled, for whatever, as a proxy term, we have a more red-pilled perspective on the world than this judge. Now, this judge seems pretty red-pilled compared to, he's definitely not a creature of the regime, but he doesn't see himself as as a a subversive force within the regime. He's not like, he doesn't recognize that this is, that we are where we are in the course of history, and he doesn't fully appreciate the role that he's playing. I could tell that. You could just tell. These are people that are still taking the system seriously, and they still, believe in the founding myths and all that. So he clearly recognizes that there's corruption and that this is that the prosecution is being motivated by explicitly ill intent. He recognizes all that stuff, but he doesn't see it as part of necessarily a grander story or grander picture. So he's not going to act as if he's a player with the status and responsibility that he actually has, because he doesn't fully recognize and appreciate that. The same goes for the defense. And then even the prosecution. The prosecution is clearly like motivated by ill intent, but they're also like incredibly boobish. So it's winding up suiting their purposes because the system is built to reward the people who feed into it. But there isn't going to be some like Machiavellian person swooping in and saving the day and orchestrating just the right outcome. It's just not going to happen. It's not going to happen either way on either side. It's going to be some sort of dissatisfying outcome for both sides. That's what I'm anticipating. Nicholas says this judge quotes both the Bible and the founders, so way out of touch with the zeitgeist or just a shitposter. I think he's definitely a he's sort of akin to like I think he has the self-perception of his status within the regime similar to someone like Jordan Peterson or something like that, where they're very keenly aware of there's the state of this evil around here, but deep down inside, they're still fundamentally liberal and conservative. And so they're liberal in the broad sense, they're conservative as a subset of liberalism. And they still implicitly buy into the liberal conception of the individual and some of these really, really basic axioms of liberalism. And so ultimately, if they have that axiomatic position, I think that acting in accordance with their role in the system is kind of inevitable. They're not gonna break themselves out until they've broken out of that liberal mode. So there's not going to be a liberal savior for this system. There isn't, like, we're not watching this iteration of the system collapse. I think we're watching liberalism collapse. And whatever comes out of it is going to be something different and I think beyond liberalism. I don't think we're reverting back to anything else. I think we're moving into an entirely new era. And the digitizing of personality is going to really fundamentally change the way that we even view things like the individual. People are going to still keep using the term individual, and they're going to still sort of conceptualize it that way, but it's going to become more and more explicitly evident that individuals don't exist. And that what there is there is a conception of the individual in everyone's mind that they're all trying to act according to. And large groups of people are visualizing the same individual. But then there's other people who are still visualizing an individual, but they're visualizing a different kind of individual. This has gotten very, very meta. So
speaking of meta,
what? Well, yeah, there you go. Meta, yeah. Yeah.
So I was like thinking that today. I was like editing a video for somebody, and it was just like, oh man, it's really about today, but it took today to sort of record it and edit it. And so if they have to post it tomorrow, it's really about yesterday. So that kind of stuff. And then it just, it made me kind of think about, when like live streaming got big. Like we're live streaming right now. And so we could edit this and it would look better, we would be more perfect. But it's like also like fake. And it's the same thing with like, like live streaming an event versus like recording an event and like editing it and, presenting it later. But sort of like the turnaround time on everything, like kind of, shortening. The ideal thing would be able to be like, okay, well, how do I make an edited live event, so that when I make this Instagram story for this coffee house, it's showing like the day that is, and like, oh, would it be cool to spend this actual day inside this coffee shop? And really, that's where that augmented reality comes in, because it's just like, yes, it is at the very essence like something that's edited and manipulated is fake and just a better version, an accentuated version of itself, and so, well, how do you have something that's like live and fake? Well, there you go. There it is. But like everything, and the same thing with like filters and stuff like that. It's just making things fake and live, or almost live, But yeah, like we're like clamoring for that, sort of, in many ways. We all have done it. We all have done it. This is really going to border on. At some point, you better hope that Matthew never gives me the login for this YouTube. Don't tell him that I have it, because I think I may have it. Because I will get. I'm going to get drunk in old mania about how we are all complicit in the hellscape that awaits us. Because of
Steven's going to start going fire and brimstone on us.
Oh no, we are. But yeah, these fucking like this right here. This and everything that comes with it. This is we are all to blame for everything that comes with that one. So like basically, the long and short of that one for me is that like everything that we recognize right now, as being a problem for the future that we would hope to not see. Charlemagne. Anyway, that's all kind of second to like this guy and everything that came along with it. This was the pill and the peanut butter that we all gulped down, and just because we found other pills and pieces of cheese, man, I don't know. Yeah. So, but yeah, if old wine mom gets a few in her and starts feeling real like a cross between sort of a yoga wine mom and Ted Kaczynski, if those personalities sort of enter in the plasmosis is firing off toxically, ooh boy, you're gonna get a talking to from Aunt Steve boy.
So Cooper, shout out Cooper. Cooper, by the way, is that's my boy. We've been having some really good conversations lately.
Yeah,
if you want to join,
I blew Cooper's mind. So let's all take a moment.
We have this on our in our supporting listeners group on the Discord. There we have a channel for the warlords only, and we've been doing a roundtable every other Tuesday. And I'm thinking, and we may have to start going more often than that, because these conversations we've had are just beyond amazing. And Cooper has introduced us to the book, The Language of Creation, which I have right here, by Matthew Peugeot, Jonathan Peugeot's brother. And this is like a rewiring of your brain, a rewiring of the way that you view the world in terms of it's Language of Creation, Cosmic Symbolism, and Genesis. And I'm not getting through it as fast as I want to, but I'm doing my best. It will rewire your perspective on just the structure of reality. You start recognizing these patterns, these fractals, and microcosm, macrocosm. It's just, once you start applying these, the last conversation we had was we were talking about psychedelics, and we were talking about the narrative that people attach themselves to, and then egregores. It was a subject we kind of touched on our last conversation, but we're going to talk about it a lot more on our next one. So there's a group of us. We just hop on a Zoom call and we just sit there and talk for like 3 hours late into the night, just discussing all this crazy stuff. So this sort of idea that you just introduced, Stephen, this is exactly the type of thing that we dig into on that in those kinds of conversations. So for people who are listening, Cooper said VR/augmented reality is just super high-end Snapchat filters. Holy shit, Steve, that blew my mind. There is depth to that idea.
Yeah, I'm really deep. I don't know if anybody knew, and Cooper's one of the smart ones. We got a couple smart ones in the supporting listeners group, and Coop's in there.
Every single person
there
in
in the
that
mix.
group is, I guess there might be people in the group that don't interact at all. I don't think so. I think everyone in there is really active. But like every single person in there is clearly above average intelligence. That's what's really nice about.
Except me. I'm the representative of the common folk. That's why they keep me around, fans.
we have very carefully curated our people in there by ensuring that we keep all the dummies away. We don't attract any of them. So what was I going to say? What were we talking? Oh, so you were talking about making video and live streaming and that sort of thing.
Yeah. If I can relate something to making videos or fighting, I'm your man.
That seems like that would be a pretty good segue into telling people about one of your favorite places.
Yep, Paloma Verde. I got a real quick question for and you can answer this as I do the live read there, Natasha. But you said good afternoon. I think. Where the hell are you watching from? Good afternoon. Because like it's dark as fuck where I am. But yeah, just a quick question. Anywho, because a name like Natasha, I don't know. Sorry, I'm picturing her being British for some reason, but probably not. Paloma Verde CBD.com is Matthew Beautiful. Sorry.
Don't worry, Cooper. I don't think we know what we're talking about either.
Okay. All right. This is serious time, fans. The place that Matthew obviously was setting me up to talk about is the popularliberty.com.
God damn it. No.
Yeah. Okay,
we don't say those words. We don't say those words. We are the #1 promo code for PalomaVerdeCBD.com. Promo code King.
All right, I'm going to get it together here. So the reason why I'm able to work and do nothing but video work is actually because of a place called the Nomad Network, fans. And before that it was an official sponsor of the show, I used to advocate this quite a bit. I think for like the when in doubt, man, what do we do? Like if you're asking the question, what do we do? A good first step, I think, would be to join the Nomad Network. And your fancy ideas about starting a this or a that or rebelling against a this or that, you just put that all out the window and go put yourself around some people that can help you navigate the future. There's some really the human resources, not in the get a job sense, but the resource of information that is in there delivered through human form is pretty freaking impressive in its concentration. So there's a gentleman in there. I'm going to slowly maybe reveal his identity. First name Brian. There's a gentleman named Brian in the Nomad Network who helped me basically set up a business like within 20 minutes, and then implement it. I was able to implement it into everything he talked about within like, I don't know, like it kind of got rolling like the next day. And then from there kind of was like over the course of weeks and months became something that is, I don't know, helping me sustain myself and kind of, has a good trajectory going forward. And then observing the Nomad Network, there's a lot of that going on for different individuals in different circumstances. There's people that know about marketing and video editing and things you need to do to set up an online business and business strategies like Brian. And it's just, it's pretty freaking incredible. So what you want to do is head over to www. Don't forget those 3 W's. Be an adult. Type in www.nomadnetwork.app/king to join the Nomad Network.
I don't know exactly why the WWWs are required. We haven't figured out exactly what it is yet. If anybody out there knows,
I'll tell you why. It's because it's the who, what, and where of the age to come. Everyone's talking about, we need to build a parallel squiddly do, and that's it right there. Like that's it. Like don't overlook it. Like that's where. I'm not going to say it's going to be the place, but it's going to be a place. That you want to be involved in the future. So everyone kind of we need to set up we need to set up alternative this and that and parallel economies. And it's like, man, I don't know if anyone else is kind of, at like the ground floor of this, but like that's a place that's run by a guy with a pretty good track record, So all bullshit aside, when I kind of flirt before I sort of became my number. Well, I won't say what number client he is. He's up there. All the flirtation with Jason Stapleton, really it comes from a place, aside from being delicious and kind of like a rugged, recon Marine and the whole bit. It's really that, for years and years and years of anything that I've fucking listened to, on the internets, stuff that made me laugh or stuff that made me, gave me some kind of like dopamine or whatever for like reinforcing whatever my ideas were. I did have this guy forever saying, hey, I don't know when shit's going to hit the fan, but like, I'm just kind of looking around, like reading the room. Shit's going to hit the fan at some point. And like, when it does, you don't want to be working for some big ass company. And this is way before 2020, way before. Shit's going to hit the fan. When it hits the fan, you don't want to be working for some big ass company. You want to be able to control the source of your income. You want to be able to, you have to budget, you have to spend less than you make, all this shit. Hearing that over and over again over the years, in between, like, hey, join my training for this. Like, I didn't have money to join any training, but I did have this voice that was telling me I needed to control the source of my income, which made me feel fine about leaving, or better about leaving, like a secure, stable job, and kind of going off and doing my own thing. When things got rough in my secure, or when I was building my own thing, and it was like, oh, maybe I should run back to my secure, stable job. Hearing that voice kind of just say, no, that's not where you want to be, for what's to come in like 2000, I don't know, 17, 18, way before anyone was saying any of this shit. It's run by that guy. Like, my enjoyment of listening to like Jason Stapleton over the years comes from reflecting on all these moments, like after the fact, like 2020, 21, kind of like looking back and be like, man, that son of a gun really was shit years and years and years and years ago. So it's just like, oh, I guess he's a little bit ahead of the curve. And so what he's doing over at Nomad Network, I can only presume is also ahead of the curve. And although I appreciate it now, maybe I won't be able to fully appreciate it until years later. So add or not add, go over there and join up if you haven't.
We just had an interesting conversation this week with Thaddeus Russell over on Willpower and Influence about what he's doing at Renegade University, because there's a lot of warning, buzzword alert. There's a lot of synergy between what we're doing with the Nomad Network and what Thad is doing with his Renegade University. And really the main point of it all is the recognition that modern education systems have utterly failed to equip people for the modern age, and that problem is just going to keep getting worse, and that the internet enables us to transcend those deficits that were created by poor education. So if you're someone who feels exposed or feels like there's like you're at risk of being ground under by the machine, or by the machine of the regime, then you don't have to feel like, well, the only thing I could do is go back to college and I can't take on all that debt and I don't have all that time and yada yada yada. Therefore, I'm just stuck where I'm at. You don't have to live that like that anymore. You can pivot your own career in real time through your own self-education. And what you need to do that is you just need the right network and the knowledge, the right knowledge and skills to apply what you learn from the network. So that's the idea behind the Nomad Network, that your freedom going forward in the future is going to be dependent on your ability to control the source of your income and to make that income mobile. And part of what makes, when we talk about wealth, a lot of people hear wealth and they think of like just money, but wealth isn't just money. Money is an intermediary good that you pursue, because by having money, it unlocks all these other things that money can buy for you. But you need to have the access to the things that money can buy for you. And then you need to have access to the things that money can't buy. And wealth is both of those things. So a key component of wealth is your network. It's the network of people around you who enable you to outsource your own skill deficits. So if you don't have the ability to do something, but you have some cash, you can trade that cash for the person who has the ability, rather than having to take the time to try to develop the ability for yourself.
Which is what Mr. Stapleton does with me.
Right. And with me, so there are, this is about not just like, becoming an entrepreneur and like, I'm going to get rich on the internet. That's not the sort of perspective that we're talking about here. We're talking about recognizing this as a fundamental reality of modern existence. The internet exists, and it's not going away anytime soon. So being able to maximize your own experience on the internet and using it to create your own liberty, rather than waiting for somebody else to come get it for you, or waiting for some sort of movement to build up to actually give some liberty to you. You have the opportunity to go create it for yourself. Just take the world as it is, to use as a starting point, use the world as it is right now, and give yourself more liberty within this context. If you can master that process, and you can commoditize that process of giving yourself liberty, and then of giving other people their liberty as well, then you don't need to sit around waiting for the political winds to change. You don't need to devote money to trying to try to like buy politicians and all that sort of thing. You don't need to worry about all that when you can create it for yourself first. Once you've created it for yourself, then you may turn around and find yourself in a position where you can reasonably do that. You can pay for to buy off a politician, or to pass some sort of bill or piece of legislation locally to you, or to create some kind of institution or something like that. And when you've gotten to that point, then you can open up this new conversation about what's the best political party to try to buy support from, and what, like, now you're having a pragmatic discussion where you're debating pros and cons of an actual reality rather than pros and cons of a hypothetical reality. So for that first part, for your own personal refinement and education and network building, like Steven said, you go to www.nomadnetwork.app/king. You sign up there. If you use the /king, then we'll be able to track, see how many people have come from here. And then for the second part of that, if you're someone who has already gotten yourself to that position, or if for whatever reason you're just naturally, whether you already own your own business, or if you have an isolated or secure position within someone else's organization already, and you're looking for somewhere to start leveraging your money, you want to start getting more return out of it rather than just building your own self up, then our third and final sponsor for the day is the GOP Mises Caucus. So I'm not going to read the specific copy today because we've already been talking about this for a really long time. But the idea here is that if you're familiar with Hoppe's "What Must Be Done" strategy, that's what the GOP Mises Caucus exists to pursue, among other things. It is a PAC. It's a political action committee that is working to actually implement the closest thing we can get to privatized governance at local levels. Following the founder, Andrew, Popular Liberty, he has a pretty genius system that he's conceived of called the anti-tax that actually creates the possibility for achieving a private opt-in form of taxation that can replace the existing model. And if you can start changing the system, if you can start forcing the system to adapt to you at the ground level like that, especially when you're getting them by their short and curlies, by their money, then you can start wielding some significant power outsized compared to your actual profile. You don't need to have a huge party or some huge campaign or these big, loud, flashy public displays. You don't need those sorts of things if you can work smartly at the local level and in a way designed to engineer our way towards liberty. So if you'd like to support the GOP Mises Caucus, then you can go to the link in the description, or you can go to Twitter is it at Mises GOP or at GOP Mises? Let me double check that real quick. At GOP, yeah, at GOP Mises, the Republican Party Mises Caucus, and if you decide to support them, then they just ask that if instead of making one payment straight up, if you could split it out over multiple, like over a year, split it out into 12 equal payments, that helps Andrew plan. Andrew is a planner. If you haven't listened to him before, you should go listen to his most recent conversation with Tommy Salmons over on the Year Zero podcast. I just finished listening to it today. It is very, I don't know what word I was going to use. It's called, the title of it is All Leftism is Rape. And nice and provocative. And it was a really brilliant conversation. Tommy really gave Andrew his head and just kind of let him run with it. And Andrew brought in like civilizational cycles and to Genesis and talking about the being able to see the workings of archetropism at play in the time of the judges. And it was a very 50,000 foot view of all these different dynamics that we talk about related to historical cycles and the psychological presence of leftism and all that sort of thing. So Andrew was brilliant, as he usually is. Go check that out on the Year Zero podcast with Tommy Salmons. Matthew.
Yes. Do you have any idea why the website for No Man Network requires the 3 Ws?
Amy, we had another site that was doing that, and Amy said that she figured it out.
Okay.
But I didn't know if that applied to this one.
Well, she told you. So I just want to make sure that you're listening to Amy.
Yeah, okay. She did tell me. She told me about a different website that we were having that issue with, but so I didn't know.
Am I back in your good graces yet, by the way? Trying.
She and I had a really funny. If you go to my Twitter, at Real King Pilled, you could scroll down and find the GIF conversation that she and I had last night. We were going back and forth with Trump GIFs, and it was pretty funny. Okay, up on the screen here, I got another comment from Cooper. He said the Matrix and Snapchat filters are the same phenomenon at different stages of development/resolution. That's another idea. Again, back to that book, The Language of Creation by Matthew Peugeot. That's the sort of observation that you'll start to recognize, that all of these different dynamics keep existing at fractal levels. The more you zoom out, the more you see the same pattern repeating itself. So like our perception of reality is almost like a Snapchat filter over what's actually there. We're seeing something projected over the actual reality. That's what we see. That's what we encounter with. And then then we take the Snapchat filters and apply them at a I guess, is that a higher or a lower resolution? Either way, you see in Steven's whole dance hall over there. So then Cooper added with this: create your own Snapchat filters equals become a god in the Matrix. And that actually ties into the here now that we're an hour in. That ties into what I was thinking when I titled this episode "The Latent Evil of Political Libertarianism." So I wanted to read through a thread that I just finished tweeting and tweeted out while we were doing the show here. And let me see if I can find. Okay, so there was 3 different tweets that I wanted. So the first one, I said, a society built upon the market will be enslaved by it. And it was the response to it was very interesting. There was several people who like immediately knew what I was talking about and very much agreed. And then there was people who kind of started spluttering. And and a common response was something to the effect of that the market is just people just voluntarily interacting with each other. It's people just, it's just people like non-aggressively engaging and interacting, and as if that's something that is should be understood a priori to be a good thing. It's just innately. It's just a good thing. Markets are just, it's just, we take all of the things that we think are good. You've got, I'm muting you on here, Steven, because you've got the sound happening again. So just let me know when you're ready to be unmuted. So there's this kind of a, there's an assumption in that when the response is like, here's one person said, I scroll down here. He said, a society is just people interacting. A market is just people trading. So what you've said is people interacting around people trading will become enslaved to trading. He says, obviously, we must all stop trading and become subsistence farmers. This is a someone observing a commentary on a spiritual reality and viewing it in a from an entirely rationalistic material perspective, because there's like these assumptions in here that people interacting around people trading, there's this assumption that these are just inherently just normal unobjectionable things that are generally accepted to be good. Now, they are generally accepted to be good, but that doesn't mean they are good. That doesn't mean that we just axiomatically assume that every single that someone engaged in market behavior is good. And really there's a circular logic to this within people who talk about free markets. Being circular in your logic is actually not necessarily wrong. It's actually not necessarily bad. We'll get into that more in a future episode. But I guarantee you these people don't believe that they're being circular. They don't think that they're being circular. And they would object to me saying that it's circular. But another tweet that I had, I'm going to read this other tweet and then I'm going to go through this thread. So the other one I said, evil feeds upon the desire for good in the heart of man. Evil is synthetic good. And what actually made me think about this was the whole idea about toxoplasmosis. That was the thing I kind of started like pondering, that sort of reality where you have, I think that part of the theory with toxoplasmosis is that it affects dopamine, and it either upregulates or downregulates your dopamine secretion. And then I started thinking about the different substances where, like when I'm looking for dog food, I remember looking for dog food and reading about synthetic vitamins and minerals that are put into dog food, and that it's not there. They can cause health issues because the synthetic substance isn't the real thing, but it will be treated by the body as if it's the real thing, and then eventually the body will become unable to take up the real thing when it's introduced to it. So your body gets adapted to this once to the specific synthetic thing, and it becomes like addicted to the synthetic substance that doesn't provide the same nutrient value, and then it loses the ability to derive value from the real thing. So there's two errors that happen with this. The first error is that it is now being poisoned by the synthetic thing, and the second error is that it's not receiving the nutrients of the real thing. And so I was thinking about that in like a biological sense, and I started thinking about it in a spiritual sense, and recognizing that everyone knows that the road to hell is paved with good intentions. That's it's almost trite to say at this point, but what that means, the truth that it's driving at, is that people who do evil things don't think they're doing something evil. And in fact, it even goes even further than that, that people who do evil things, I don't know if I would go quite so far as to say this is a rule, but I would suspect that it is a rule, that people who do evil things think that they are doing good things. It's not just that they don't think they're doing evil things, they think they are doing good things. And this is how evil entraps people. This is how evil ensnares people, by masquerading as good. In the Bible, it talks about the when it talks about Antichrist and the archetype of Antichrist, it says that Antichrist deceives even the very elect. So if this isn't, there's the kind of the juvenile notion of like the evils. Oh, it's this like, it's the guy with the red horns and a pitchfork, and it's like when you see it, it's like, oh yeah, evil. You can recognize evil as soon as you see it. There are forms of evil that you can recognize right when you see it, but there are many things that are good, or many things that look good, that seem good, that are evil. And the like this should be a kind of a very obvious observation that people get sucked in thinking that they're doing good things and they ultimately wind up doing evil things. And everybody thinks that they're the ones who are different, that everyone else is the ones who get sucked in and does evil things thinking they're doing good things. And because I'm planning on doing good things, because I mean to do good things, then I'm the one who's doing the good things. And so especially when you have a movement or a body of people or an organization of people who a key component of their self-identification is that they are the pure or the moral or the upright or the chaste ones. When they're like prominently identifying with that, we are the elect, we are the remnant, we're the ones who don't have the corruption of everyone else. That particular dynamic within an organization of people leaves people at great risk of being led astray by evil, being drawn in by evil, thinking that they're doing good. And this is a reality that torments me day and night. I think about this almost nonstop. Like how do you know, given the realities we've talked about in the past about how subjective all of your perspective is necessarily subjective, and we're so easily um, propagandized, and it's so easy to create our worldview for us and give it to us, and the human mind is so easily led astray and deceived. The whole marketing and advertising industry is all built around studying how to manipulate and weaponize human psychology. And it's very, very easy. So, how does one become self assured that number one, the world that they see is the world that actually is? And number two, that what they see as true or right or good is actually true and right and good? Because if everybody's perspective, like if you were to be placed in anybody else's shoes, and if having been placed in their shoes, you saw the world through their eyes, and through their eyes, you suddenly recognized like why they believe the things that they believe, and you realize that if I was that person, I was in that spot, and I went through everything that they went through, I would believe the same thing. So if this reality is true, that everybody perceives themselves as being the good ones, everyone is the hero in his own story, everyone sees themselves as being the good guy and as being the victim being the victim of everyone else's evil, I mean, then how does one know that? How do I know that what I am doing is good, that what I believe is true? And yeah, that like those are the thoughts that um those are the thoughts that just run through my head all the time. So I'm becoming very hyper aware of this phenomenon or this reality in my own life. Let me check, see what the time is real quick. Okay. Um so so back to this idea of evil as a synthetic good. Um if your goal was to deceive people into self-destructing, then you wouldn't want them to realize that they were self-destructing, kind of like by definition. Part of the goal in getting them to self-destruct is to not is to ensure that they don't know that they're self-destructing. So this is part of why the whole spirit of Antichrist always is when it's accurately portrayed, it's portrayed as um people with noble and good intentions, and it's very flowery, and there's always a to be an effective Antichrist, it has to plausibly pass for Christ. So it's going to be someone who um advertises piety and virtue and seems very virtuous and probably even believes themselves that they are virtuous. But this is just a pattern that just repeats so often that it's inevitable that even people who are aware of the pattern are going to be sucked into it. This is how easily manipulated and led astray the human mind is. So these are just kind of the things that are going on in my head as I'm thinking through this issue. So this tweet thread that I put out here, I'm gonna read through it, and I know that inevitably there are going to be people who take this personally, and I can't do anything about that. This is not written to be taken as insulting or degrading or anything like that. The reason that I'm trying to reason through these thoughts is because I'm reasoning through them. I'm coming to these realizations as I'm thinking and talking through them and writing them out. And I'm trying to share them with other people because I'm looking for people who these thoughts speak to. And one of the best ways that I can do that is through talking about it on our show that I do and tweeting about it and having other people's audiences come across it. So that's my goal. My goal with these thoughts is to attract and speak to and start a conversation with the people who connect with these ideas. If you don't connect with the idea, I don't have anything against you. I'm not talking to you. So if you wanna argue with me, be combative or whatever, I'm just not gonna engage with you on this. Unless you seem to be interesting and I decide that I'm going to. But that's not my goal with bringing these up. My goal isn't to persuade. My goal is to um, connect dots for people that already have that the dots are already there. So I said libertarian morality is incompatible with the libertarian conception of liberty. A state of emergent order will not arise from within a society of libertarians. So first of all, the term liberty is very vague. We I think we talked about this with Jeff Dice. So if you want to hear that episode now, just go join the Sporting Listeners group and look for the link in the Discord, and you can watch the YouTube interview. Otherwise, if you just want to wait, then it'll come out on Monday. We talked about liberty being something that's very very subjective. Lots of people talk about liberty, but there's no consensus about what liberty actually means. And in just the same way, there's no consensus about what government actually means, or politics, or even democracy. A lot of these words don't have clear, unambiguous, concrete definitions because by necessity they exist in a world that's difficult to have concrete definitions. And if it was easy to have concrete definitions about these things, all these conflicts wouldn't even exist. Basically, every political conflict is some sort of a debate over what government means, or what politics means, or even what liberty means. So I mean, first of all, if you're named after one of these things, that one of these concepts that's very vague, that kind of just serves as like an empty vessel for somebody to put their own assumptions or expectations into, then you're kind of getting off on the wrong foot to begin with. So liberty is, I'll always remember um, the good friend of the show, Vashti, talked about how she had I can't remember if it was, I think it was had um, uh, a significant other from Germany, and he would always talk about like, free Americans, you guys aren't free. Like, you could be bankrupted by medical debt, or you have to, like, student loan debt is just crippling, and you don't have all these social services, and you think he went through this list. He's like, you don't have all these things. There's no way that you're free. He's like, for me, I can like I never have to worry about paying for the doctor. I never have to worry about all these different things. The government takes care of all that stuff for me. And I realized when she said that there's two fundamental different perspectives at work here. To the person who prefers that sort of system, freedom is freedom from nature, freedom from reality. And to someone like the most people probably who listen to this show, freedom means freedom from other people, freedom from being harmed by like conscious organisms. We would rather fight with reality. We would rather be like contend with reality as it is on our own terms and have other people not be imposed upon us. They would rather have other people be imposed upon them and not have to contend with reality on its terms. Hold on just a second. I have to take a drink. So this is why I said that libertarian morality is incompatible with the libertarian conception of liberty. When libertarians talk about liberty, invariably, whether they will consciously acknowledge this or not, what they mean is freedom from a state, freedom from the influence of a state. It's something like you might say like no organized violation of property rights. That's their conception of liberty. So in their mind, a privatized society would have liberty by definition because it doesn't have any state there like imposing itself upon and violating people's rights. But if you dig into that idea, even like for just a second, any libertarian who starts digging into that idea even for a second will be like, well, no, clearly, like, just because someone is a private organization doesn't mean that they can't violate your rights. The people rights, this is, there's crime and all this other stuff. But now there's like a Mott and Bailey happening here where it's like, while the state exists, then the state is the only thing that can violate your liberty. But then if we imagine a world where the state doesn't exist, then, oh yeah, well, there's other things that could violate liberty. Well, if those other things could violate your liberty then they could violate your liberty now. So the whole libertarian conception of liberty as something that's entirely, in practice, is entirely focused on the state, entirely focused on even like specifically on like a Republican form of government, little r Republican form of government. Their entire conception of reality revolves around that. But libertarian morality is incompatible with the conception of liberty that they are imagining themselves working toward. When they imagine themselves like inducing the state to minimize itself and getting people to only interact voluntarily and not worry about using a public force coercion mechanism. Libertarian morality will not lead you to that. And if you want some evidence for that, see, as the next tweet, literally every libertarian organization ever. If the ideology was what its adherents claim it to be, libertarian organizations would stand out as organically more stable and inclined away from fractiousness and toward peaceful cooperation and growth. Woo. Little hum. All right. And this clearly is not the case. It's clearly not the case that libertarian organizations happen to be naturally more cooperative and peaceful and inclined away from political squabbles. It's like the exact opposite. Libertarians are like the most politically fractious people. So the idea that just converting people to libertarianism, getting people to accept the libertarian ideology and embrace it, the idea that will somehow lead us to a world where there is no violation of people's property rights is just, it's plainly not true. Those don't go together. Someone who has the goal of trying to get rid of the state and part of that is going to be trying to persuade people to accept libertarianism as there's their Lord and Savior. That idea is at conflict with the idea of having a society, a privatized society, where there's no property rights and where tyranny has been abolished. Those just don't go together. If everyone was to live like libertarians, to approach the world like a libertarian, then invariably the people who choose not to will rule the world. In practice, libertarianism, the way libertarians look at it today, in practice comes out as political pacifism. It has the same effect. I'm not saying it is political pacifism. I'm saying it winds up in the same place. So continuing the thread, to attain the state of liberty desired by libertarians, one must recognize the latent evil within libertarian morality that masquerades as piety and virtue and evolve beyond that simple negative ethic. Just having a simple negative ethic is not enough. Saying don't hurt people and using that as your watchword is not sufficient. It's just not good enough. And this morality that builds itself around that negative idea, masquerading as a essentially a comprehensive ideology, is actually worse than an ideology that is explicitly antithetical to liberty. It's explicitly antithetical to that form of morality. Because it's a synthetic form of positive morality. Continuing with the thread, the latent evil within orthodox libertarian morality is the toleration and de facto defense of various quote-unquote non-aggressive forms of evil under the banner of do whatever you want as long as you aren't violating someone else's property rights. Do what you want. Do whatever you want as long as you aren't violating someone else's property rights. Simply turns the conversation into what constitutes property rights. And as soon as you've turned it into that conversation, you have lost. If you've declared that you're someone who will bind yourself to a rule of not violating other people's property rights. Because as soon as you're outnumbered, or as soon as you are, you don't even have to be outnumbered in an absolute sense. You can just have enough people who consolidate enough power for themselves. They will assign themselves the arbiters of what constitutes property rights. And then it can change as often as they want it to. So by taking a negative proposition and substituting it for a positive proposition, you've just set yourself up for somebody to impose their positive proposition on you. So something that's pretending to be good, that results in bad outcomes, cannot be good. So to the market, the idea of being enslaved by the market, when libertarians defend the market as axiomatically good because it is, quote, simply people interacting voluntarily and non-aggressively, they're implicitly assuming the freedom of the human will is inherently good. Because if people just interacting together is automatically assumed to be good, then it must be good when people act. Like the freedom of the will to choose to act must be something that is inherently good in and of itself. This is why choice has a positive connotation. Because it's a deification of the human will, which is really the spirit of liberalism. This mercantile ideology conceived of specifically to undermine established hierarchies, conceived of by aristocratic classes nonetheless. It is ultimately the deification of the human will. This is what liberalism is. This is why liberalism is ultimately the spirit of Antichrist. Because it is the deification of the human will. It's taking the Christian worldview. The don't hurt other people is a Christian principle. Like prior to Christianity, every people group ever operated according to the principle of the like might is right. That the worship of and glorification of power and strength and domination. If you were weak and you lost, that was seen as good. Like because being weak and losing are the same thing. So this is just reality playing itself out. So the idea, this whole idea of don't hurt people and don't take their stuff, respect people's property rights from an a priori ethical position, this is a descendant of Christianity. But it isn't entirely Christianity. It's something masquerading as Christianity. Because the God of Christianity has been withdrawn from it. And in its place has to be something else there. Well, what's that something else? I think, therefore I am. That something else is the idealized conception of the human self, of the human individual. And so then when liberals think about the market, what they're seeing is a bunch of divine wills all interacting with each other. So there's this implicit assumption that the freedom of the human will is inherently good, which must mean that the product of that freedom is inherently good. These are the natural, these things naturally follow with each other. If the acting of if the freedom of the human will is inherently good, then whatever the human will chooses must be good as well. That would be a natural implication of it. But clearly that's not true. Like, clearly every single thing someone does isn't good. To their own perspective, it may be, but nobody actually believes this. Even people who argue against objective morality obviously don't believe this. There's a difference between what they think and say and what they believe. What they believe is obviously that there is some form of objective evil, because when they encounter it, they react like someone who encountered objective evil. So for this reason, I'm saying that this is something that's happening subconsciously in people's minds when they're thinking through the market, when they're talking about the free market being inherently good. Having people interacting together voluntarily being inherently a good thing. So recognizing that conflict, recognizing that saying the free market is good because it's free and because human choice is a good thing, and like freeing the human will is automatically a good thing. Seeing that would imply that any product of it must be good, well, that has to be constrained somehow. So we have to come up with an arbitrary constraint on it. We have to try to rationalize one, because we're rationalists here. We have to rationalize an arbitrary constraint that we can convince ourselves is not arbitrary, that binds that in case, so we can explain away bad stuff when it happens. So I said anyone can see clearly that those assumptions are self-defeating. If the human will is good, what happens when one human's will violates another's? Whose will takes precedence? So a corpus of ultimately arbitrary negative laws attempts to protect the human will from itself. So ultimately, there's this ideal human acting, there's this ideal individual, rather, that we all hold inside our minds as good liberals. And when someone does something, we compare that action that they took to what the ideal person would do. And we say, well, that's not the ideal person. That person's acting out of accordance with the ideal individual. That person is not acting according to their God. You're saying they're out of accordance with their God, the ideal individual. How do we know? Well, they violated another individual. That other individual has to be divine as well. If we're operating from the conception of the divine will, that person has to be divine as well. So if someone acting according to their own, pursuing their own free will, if that is inherently good, then when someone acting according to their free will compromises somebody else's free will, that can't be good as well. So that must be where the line is drawn between good and evil. So this is a like a post hoc rationalization, attempt at justifying Christianity without Christ as the definition of good. So it's a synthetic Christ. Liberalism is ultimately worshiping a synthetic Christ, which is just another term for an antichrist. The last tweet in the thread here, I said, in quotes, "The freedom of the individual is good. Therefore, any product of the freedom of the individual will is good. Unless that product infringes upon the freedom of another individual will, is at the heart of Satanism. That's like one of the fundamental applications of Satanism. And if you look throughout, speaking to what's mostly a bunch of Christians, if you look throughout the Bible, throughout the biblical narrative, from the point of the fall on, this is the message that's being presented by demons. That ultimately the individual will is the ultimate good, and that forcing people against their individual will is wrong. See you, Clockwork. Have a good day, buddy. So, Adam Patrick tweeted yesterday, I think. He said that libertarianism and Christianity are incompatible. And he's going to be having a conversation tonight that I'm very curious to hear. He's talking to Jacob, I think his name is, Biblical Anarchy on Twitter. And I'm very interested to see that, to see that conversation happen, because what I'm recognizing here is that people, there's kind of this meme that that libertarianism and Christianity like go hand in hand, and that libertarianism is like the Christian political philosophy. And like if you were to take libertarianism, you imagine it as like part of a picture, and it's kind of, there's a part on the picture where it's been torn off. And if you were to have a copy of the full picture and you were to lay the full picture down, then you could take this part that's been torn off and you could lay it down and it would overlap. It would fit into part of that picture. So libertarianism has some accordance with Christianity. It's descendant from it, but it's ultimately like a bastardization of it, because built into its fundamental presuppositions is the notion of the supremacy of the human will. And if you take that away, if you take that out of the foundation of libertarian thought, then a large amount of it becomes self-defeating. It begins to take itself out as it falls apart. And ultimately, if we are to achieve some sort of world without the corruption and the evil and the oppression and the violation, the quote unquote violation of rights that pains people, that leads them to the libertarian ideology, if we are to actually get to that point, it's not enough to just say, don't hurt other people. That's not enough. The negative proposition isn't enough. There has to be a positive proposition that comes with it. Not just don't act this way, but rather act this way. Because if you just create a void, if you just open up a vacuum, it will be filled. You can't open the vacuum. You have to fill the vacuum. You have to fill it with something positive. You have to have something to put in there. That something has to be a positive, prescriptive ethic. So one thing that Jeff Dice said in the interview that you can hear if you join our supporting listeners group, and that you can also hear coming out publicly on Monday. One thing that he touched on in there that he'd actually mentioned to us before the show is that he said that he's not a libertarian. He said he didn't want to be called a libertarian. And that perked our ears up, because we are similarly inclined. And so I asked him why. And he said, because, among many other things, to him, libertarian is an adjective, not a noun. And making it your identity, making it the foundation of your worldview, leads you in some really bad directions. It leads to people who view themselves as the upstanding, moral, ethical people because they abide religiously to this negative ethic. So They see themselves as good because they're not doing any bad things. But just not doing bad things isn't enough. You have to be doing good things, and your identity needs to be based on the good things that you're doing. One thing we talk about in that, I'm not going to give away the whole episode, but one thing we talked about was this absence or this crisis of leadership. Maybe that was in the Charlemagne episode. I don't remember when. We talked about the absence of positive leadership within these broad internet communities. And it's something that is really troubling to me, especially the more that I understand the fractal nature of reality and like the cosmic symbolism in the language of creation. And I see the necessity of strong masculine leadership and just how toxic and imbalanced human societies get with the absence of strong men. Strong men who stand for and advocate for specific positive growth, who actually have something to fight for and not just something to fight against. And I think that going forward, Stephen and I have talked about this here, that we're going to keep having lots of different guests and stuff. We've got a whole list of people that we're going to be reaching out to and bringing other people on the show here to talk. And what we're trying to really emphasize and hone in on is this necessity for having something positive to live for and to act for, and the fact that your own body, yourself, is meant to be a tool that you use toward the pursuit of good. It is not the good in and of itself. Amy says we should have Joshua back on to talk about birthing. Yeah, go watch Popular Liberty and Josh Rayner, the raw milk guy, on Popular Liberty's channel. He just had a really good conversation. I just started it and it's very good already. But we're going forward with the supporting listeners group and all the people that we have in there. We're going to start doing more stuff related to personal development and trying to move people in the direction of beginning to live for something positive rather than just advocating against things.
It's going to be all positivity.
Yeah.
So what we can't have is any negativity. We don't want people to be mad. So we're going to start something called the No Mad Network that you can.
That was very well done. That was beautifully executed.
Right. Wasn't crowbarred in at all.
Yeah. No, we can't have just positivity. We have to have some negativity as well, because we got to keep the opposite polarities there to keep balance.
Yeah.
But yeah, we've got the Warlords Roundtable, and we've been doing these regular calls, which I think are phenomenal for motivating my own spiritual development. But then we're also going to be bringing some different people along the lines of Josh, and it's been cool seeing some people talking about the effects of drinking raw milk and having started it over the last couple of weeks and seeing positive effects in their lives. I have been drinking it regularly as well, and I definitely noticed a change, especially right at first. I've been having all sorts of pain and health issues for the last couple of weeks, and really for a few years now. I've had a bunch of chronic issues because I've really let myself go. I've gotten out of shape and lazy, and I don't work out. I don't train myself at all, or enough at least. And I need to get back into that, because I can feel my mind going. I can feel not just my body going, I can feel my mind going. I'm a couple weeks away from 33, and I've got a son now that depends on me, a son and a wife that depend on me, and I need to get myself in tip-top shape. We started attending the Orthodox Church, and
man, that's so
good.
Weird.
What?
Because I got like nothing. I got no real reason to live for. I don't have like a wife or a kid or anything like that. But I'm in fucking great shape. So that's so weird. You know what I mean?
There you go. There's that opposite
Maybe,
polarity.
yeah. Maybe I'll start letting myself go, and you can just be more pragmatic, and then you can get your shit together.
Yeah, there we go. We'll meet in the middle.
Yes,
because as everyone knows, we're good moderates. There's nothing radical or extremist about us.
I'm gonna totally let myself go, and then you can go on the whole like health and nutrition thing.
I can go whole hog on it.
Yeah, hell yeah.
Yeah. So, anyways, yeah, Amy says we're gonna find you a wife. And just in time, your mom pops in.
Perfect. I think that's illegal, but what were you saying with that? I don't get it.
What?
I don't know. She can't be.
Well, no, your mom hops in and she's gonna see us talking about getting you a wife, so we're gonna get her on the task as well.
I think she would be one of the first people to tell you that you would not want to do that to anyone that you knew personally.
We'll inflict you on someone.
Oh no.
But yeah, so if this is stuff that interests you guys, if you're listening to this, you're entertained by any of this, or you feel motivated similarly, I'm feeling convicted and compelled. A number of things I've heard recently have really convicted me to start to get my shit together. And especially if I'm going to be talking about this stuff publicly, I can't be a hypocrite. So if this is something that interests you guys want to join us, if you're feeling the same way and you want some people who can hold you accountable, if you want to join in some really good conversations, then come join us in the supporting listeners group. Join us on the Discord there. It's a good place. It's a really, really good group of people. They're all very, very smart, and we have some really interesting conversations, and we're excited about some more stuff that we're talking about, we're planning on doing in the future. And really, I'm just looking to have a network of people around me who, number one, we're all interested in the same things, and we're all personally invested in trying to hold each other accountable and help each other to grow spiritually and physically. And yeah, so if you're someone that the ideal person that I feel like I'm talking to here is kind of like myself, not too far back in the past, where I feel very drawn toward the whole libertarian thing, and you kind of have a passion, like you've got a real desire to not just save yourself, but you want to save other people. If that's your goal, then you have to save yourself first, and you're not going to do that through politics. You're not going to do that through having your political ideology and then having the rest of your life as well. Your whatever your engagement in politics is, it shouldn't be some segmented section off from like the rest of your life. You shouldn't have a political ethic and then the rest of your life ethic as well. It's too important for that. Those sorts of things that are happening within the political sphere today, and the people who are getting sucked into it and getting involved in activism and stuff, like, things have been very, very good for the last several decades in terms of people in the United States, but those costs are really starting to go up. Getting yourself there should be no expectation of the system continuing to function the way it has for the past few years. Like, we've got explicit political prisoners now. There's one thing I wanted to bring up was Steve Bannon. I feel like what's happening with Bannon is a big deal. That this is a distinct escalation by the regime in specifically targeting people and going after them for political persecution. You're seeing the same thing happen with Project Veritas. I mean, this was just beyond the pale to me. It's. I feel like I have a really good understanding of just how corrupt and evil this regime is, but this still caught me off guard. The New York Times is reporting on privileged communications between Project Veritas and their lawyers. Those privileged communications were leaked to the New York Times, who's reporting on them, and those privileged communications were about Project Veritas's relationship to these other organizations. The level of corruption and political persecution is really is really ramping up. And I don't want to see people get sucked into that. I don't want to I don't want to see people who I share a lot of the same values with get pulled into that sort of system by being deceived into thinking that they are pursuing good when they're really just pursuing a synthetic good. And ultimately the libertarian conception of liberty is a synthetic good. There are bigger and better things to focus on and pursue, and that's where I guess that's where we're headed, and you can come join us if you'd like.
And as we're saying that, we have a testimonial right there in the comments right there.
Yeah, Tyler says
Tyler was being scouted by the FBI apparently, and was getting involved in all kinds of wacky third-party political nonsense, and was on some sort of watch list. And he found our show. That's what that says, right? I could barely read it, but I think I'm getting the long and short of it.
Yeah, man, you're basically reading it word for word.
I'm kind of nailing it. Okay, yeah. So be like Tyler.
That's right.
And get yourself off the fucking FBI watch list, and listen to the King Pill Show, starring
the King
Stevie
Pill
Boy,
Show,
co-hosted by Matthew Erickson.
Yeah. The place where liberty lovers gather. Alrighty, well, like I said, look out for the Jeff Dice interview on Monday, or go to subscribestar.com/kingpilled and you can go listen to it right now. And
either way, it ain't gonna disappoint. That's all I can tell you.
No, yeah.
That's all I can tell you.
It's worth the wait. It's worth the wait. I'll say that.
Yeah, it's worth the wait. It's worth the money. Like either way, like you know,
right.
You're not gonna lose with that one. I think I rewatched it because, like I said, when I was in the middle of being there, I was watching. I was like, oh, I snap back into this. I'm sort of part of this thing loosely, you know. But I rewatched it. I've never rewatched anything other than like chop up clips or whatever. But like, I rewatched the whole fucking thing. My favorite part. This is like I'm like a little kind of like detail, like subtlety thing. He was talking about he digressed into talking about sort of how a particular politician has kind of like lost a step, you know, in health and, you know, maybe charisma and just overall je ne sais quoi. But he stayed in the digression to blame it on veganism like 3 times. You know, there are a variety of things that could have been. It's like, yeah, I think, you know, really, you know, when they went vegan, you know, that was really all downhill from there. And of all the things, like he said some really awesome stuff. Him just kind of harping on the veganism thing, that was my favorite part, I think, of the episode. Just like
right.
the little things, but yeah,
it's the sheer contempt that was just dripping from his words when he's talking about that.
That's just, it goes to show that, you know, with communication, because he's very diplomatic with his words, he's very concise. But yeah, that you know, that whole nonverbal communication aspect. What's the percentage? I was trying to think of the percentage. I was hemming and hawing right there. What percentage of communication is nonverbal?
Oh, I want to say it's like 90 or something, 85.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, you can feel, you know, it's just like, that's like a benefit of dialing down the autism, is that just like, you know, like you feel me? Like if you can feel Jeff Deist, he's saying a lot. He's saying a lot.
Yeah.
Oh God.
Yeah.
What a
I was looking back
good
through.
Time that was.
What's that?
What a rip roaring good time that was.
Yeah. When that episode finally drops, I think that there's going to be some people who he went. I just saw today that old Jeffy boy there got himself on the radar of some people who I think are exactly the types of people who he was visualizing when he was talking to us on the show. Someone's yelling at him for not taking anti-racism seriously enough.
Man, he don't give a fuck. Let me tell you that. Whatever he says, boy, oh boy, did he come out and did he come out with a tweet on that? He had another good one. While we're just all over Jeff Dice, I'm here on his Twitter, 31.3 thousand followers. Not following a whole shit ton of people. He is following me though. But yeah, he came out with something about the Wall Street Journal, and he was congratulating. He congratulated the often tepid Wall Street Journal. So it's like, you want to know how you get a compliment from Jeff Deist? It's right here, coming straight across your fucking face, and you say, "Thank you, sir." Congratulations to the often tepid Wall Street Journal.
That's almost Trumpian.
It's really good. It's really, really good. Oh fuck. God,
I just wanted to highlight up in the comments here. Tyler, our boy Tyler here was dropping some bombs. He said a free market is to allow the sale of order in exchange for chaos by an unwitting participant. And then he said this one here. This is very good. He said order is to be closer to truth or aligned with reality. Human desire is not aligned to truth. A free market puts human desire as the highest ideal. It's the most efficient way to satisfy human desire. But it's not the best way to satisfy being closer to truth, which ought to be a higher ideal. See, if I could have just talked to Tyler before we went live here, I could have just had him write that out and I could have read it and then we could have wrapped up and gone home. That's exactly what I'm trying to say. Let me read it one more time. Order is to be closer to truth, aligned with reality. This is me talking. In the Bible, when it talks about being justified, it talks about like justification. It means to be put right or to be set in order or to have everything in its proper place. That's what it means to be ordered. And order in this sense is not freezing something in time, because that's not orderly, that's brittle. Something that's brittle is a manifestation of chaos, because it's going to snap at any time and you don't know when it's coming. So order is something that's flexible and adaptive. So it's like if your body has every part of your body in the right place and all of your muscles are strong and limber, you're orderly. That is what order is. Order is not rigid. People that equate order, they'll say like, well, too much order gives you gives you tyranny. Too much order is tyranny and too much chaos is tyranny. No. We're not both sides in this bitch. Order is not tyrannical. Order is the opposite of tyranny. Tyranny is chaotic. Order is when things are justified, when things are set right, when things are all in their proper place, and we're progressing through time effectively. We're not frozen in a moment in time. We're adapting and emerging in an orderly fashion. So it's a machine that's updating itself regularly, as it would be an example of order in that sense. So yeah, so his comment again, order is to be closer to truth, aligned with reality. Human desire is not aligned to truth. This sentence here really kind of cuts at the heart of it, because the modern world essentially glorifies human desire. This is all the degeneracy that you see is all a product of the glorification of human desire and placing human desire as the highest possible good. It's a very juvenile view of the world. So it's almost like if you toxify people's bodies, you poison them with a whole bunch of toxic things and drown them in synthetic hormones in their water supply and in their food and in everything else, and you freeze their development. You stop you disrupt puberty and stop their emotional development. It's almost like they start believing in things in a really childish way. So a free market puts human desire as the highest ideal. And it says it's the most efficient way to satisfy human desire. You see this, the full like deification of capitalism and placing human desire as the highest ideal. You get things like a supply chain that's completely maximized and has every last little cent squeezed out of it, but also now is incredibly brittle. And it's built where just one little thing will make the whole thing cascade through and just snap and collapse and fall apart. this whole notion of the individual and the individual desire and stuff, like this is right at the heart of everything related to liberalism and the development of atheism and Cartesian thought giving way through the Enlightenment and then up into post-Enlightenment and then postmodernism and relativism and stuff. This is all right at the heart of all of that. But yeah, man, Tyler, that was really good thoughts. All right, I think that's all I got. Do you have to leave for your class?
Yeah, it's a private class, but it's a class nonetheless.
Oh yeah, there you go. Private class.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right, guys.
Matthew.
Well, like, share, and subscribe. Share this with share. I haven't said this in a while, so I'm going to share it again. Share it with someone who will like it. Don't share it with someone who will dislike it. Don't share it with someone to like prove a point and get them to come like try to fight with us or argue with us or something. Just share it with someone if you think that they're going to agree with it, because ultimately we're trying to build an echo chamber here. We want quality over quantity.
Whenever it becomes time, share the Diced interview with pretty much anybody.
Yeah, share that one. Yeah, that one's an exception. Share that with anyone.
Yeah.
Share that especially with people who won't like it.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm sure Jeff wouldn't appreciate us trying to use him as a weapon.
Well, it's his fault for being so fucking awesome.
All right, you can follow me on Twitter at RealKingPilled. Follow Steven on Twitter at Messina Inc. and go hire him to be your video editor. He needs more money.
Your video editor immediately.
He needs to stop being poor.
That's right.
And yeah, I guess you'll hear from us again on Monday. See you guys.